Hey, this is Marcus speaking. So, this episode of the podcast is going to be just a little bit different compared to what we've had in the last couple episodes, where instead of is it just being us talking about stuff, as it usually is going to be some interviews that I had with people that are involved with the Buffalo Film Festival, which is currently ongoing. So since I recorded them, I thought it would have been cool to compile them all together, edit them down a little bit for brevity, even though it probably doesn't look like that, since these are some decently long interviews, but I do think they're worth listening to. And, just putting them all in one episode and having you guys listen. So, hope you guys enjoy it. So, hi, my name is Marcus Ramos. I'm part of The Record, and I'm here interviewing John Fink, who is the artistic director and co-head of the Buffalo International Film Festival.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thanks so much for having us.
Since I am a journalist, I did do a little bit of research about you before the interview, just getting a feel for like what kind of questions I should ask. And it does look like you have a really decorated background in filmmaking, right?
Yep, I've made films. I'm also an educator. I'm an alum of the University at Buffalo, where actually I met my co-head of the festival, Anna Chimay, and we joined the festival about 10 years ago and have been kind of at it ever since with some other folks that helped us along the way too, and other folks that were relaunching the festival after the founder of the fest, Ed Summer, had passed away in 20. He passed away in 2014, and then in 2015, our team, which included myself and another guy named Ray Guarneri and Garrett Verder, who's another director in Buffalo, we joined along with our friend Tilke Hill and Lucia Costello to relaunch the film festival. Anna was on our board, and then later became our executive director and co-head of the fest.
hmm So like you said, you've been a part of it for a decade, so you really have like a lot of experience with running the festival, or just like being a part of it, right?
Yeah, no, I've been so I started as the festival programmer, and then slowly had more responsibilities, especially as the festival has scaled up. We're now a full week. We started the first year, we were just a 3-day event, and then we moved to Indigenous Peoples Day and went 4 days. And then we had, of course, to navigate through the COVID era. We were showing films in the parking lot of an abandoned Kmart on Hurdle Avenue down the street from our main venue, the North Park. And then we were able to return to a hybrid festival in 21, and then in 23 we went back to being fully in person. So it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a learning experience, and
hmm
I really love working in Buffalo, and I love working with these filmmakers. So it's something I'm always looking forward to the festival and what we're working on next.
So I do have a few questions written down just for the interview, and I
Sure.
guess like I did have one that I was planning to ask later, but I feel like with how the conversation is right now, I feel like now's just a good time as any. So how has it felt to be a part of the festival for this long for you personally? I would say.
Well, exhausting, but especially this time when
Yeah.
we're less than 2 weeks out from the festival. But no, it's been really gratifying to see it grow and the alumni network grow, and to see students that maybe start off in the youth category or the students category, and then they start to evolve and make films. We've seen filmmakers make that leap from making short films, and really evolve as filmmakers into being able to have access to make bigger films and feature films. And so it's also nice to see things that maybe filmmakers that we weren't able to accept, maybe their first film they submitted, and now they're, back with, a really phenomenal film. So it's nice to see sort of them grow as filmmakers as well. But it, does get, more and more competitive every year. And we also try
hmm
to bring in films that are playing on the festival circuit. So we do have films that have premiered at Sundance and South by Southwest and some of the major film festivals, alongside local Western New York films. And we have a very, very heavy dose of Western New York films, from things that are made by students in animation programs and other programs at Buff State and UB and Villa Maria, all the way to the professional films that are being made in town, like The Panic and Cutman, are also playing at the festival this year. And we also have some hometown heroes that are coming back and playing in the program, filmmakers that are from Buffalo. So we have John Maggio, who directed a really wonderful film called The Act of Dreaming, with his co-director Naisha Satri, and John is a Buffalo native. Actually, he saw Star Wars at the North Park Theater in the '70s, and so
Oh
he's
wow.
really excited to bring the act of dreaming back to his hometown theater. He's had a storied career. His films have played at major festivals, and we're excited to finally welcome him to Biff with the act of dreaming, which is a very Buffalo centric story about dreamers and families navigating migrant services that are available in the city of Buffalo. So it's a movie about the city of good neighbors, and it's a wonderful doc.
So you did talk about seeing the growth of filmmakers, which does touch upon a follow-up question that I had, which was
Sure.
how how do you feel that like you've grown as well, like alongside the festival, you would say? Like do you think you have grown like as a filmmaker, as a person in general, like stuff like that?
Sure. I mean, as we tell our interns, and if any of your listeners would like to apply for the internship, we usually start to open those up in like March or April for the following year. It's a great film school to sort of see the the work that we get. So we process our open call. We have about 1,000 submissions every year. We can only take
Wow.
around 150 to 200 of those, and so you really do get to see what works, what doesn't work, and sometimes for a filmmaker it's really about fit. You know, if you have 10 movies that are about the same subject, you know, a couple years ago, like the opioid crisis was a thing we were seeing a lot in nonfiction and fiction work. You can only take like two or three of the good one of the best of those, or things that are locally connected. And so we also look for things that have a Buffalo connection, similar to the way like a newspaper would be looking for stories that are connected to their community or more local.
Yeah.
We sort of take that approach as well. And so it's a, you know, and I think over the years I've learned, you know, sort of what you know, kind of how to hopefully counter program against when the Bills are playing, what kind of works in those show times,
Yeah.
and also, you know, the wonderful thing too about doing this and is that I have a giant network of friends and really wonderful people that are part of the festival and alum of the festival, and it's always nice to travel and see them at festivals and see them, you know, if I'm out in LA or New York or something, I can connect with them. So it's been really
Mhm.
nice to sort of personally kind of grow that, and Buffalo again is an amazing city. You know, you just find folks that are so kind, and you know, naturally over the years, my you know. I've made some really great friends, you know, through the festival. So that's the thing I've enjoyed the most out of it.
Yeah, because a lot of people we love to like describe Buffalo as a very artistically driven city. You know, like we have downtown with all the theaters and music and stuff. And so like especially with like stuff like say music is art, which really highlights the music scene and adds a lot to Buffalo. Would you say that this festival would also like it adds a lot to Buffalo's cultural identity, you would say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this year, one of the shorts programs that I'm really proud of that we were able to put together is something called Biff Shorts Canvas 716, which is playing actually that Thursday night. It's our late show at Hall Walls at 9 o'clock on Thursday, October 9th. And this is a way that we were able to bring in a lot of the creative things happening around fashion and art that's happening in the street, things that aren't necessarily that filmmakers are maybe working with. And so this is it has a documentary about 10 tattoo artists in Western New York. It's got a documentary about the graffiti artist who draws the stick figures that you see, you know, in a lot of the industrial landscapes. It's got a fashion
Mhm.
piece that's really kind of interesting from an artist that is, you know, using multiple kinds of media, not just film and video, and then other pieces that are a little bit more performative that you know sort of reflect that unique creativity that you see, you know, beyond the filmmaking scene. So we really want to be that platform for everybody. We really want to bring everybody into that family to celebrate and see great films. And then also we throw 5 parties during the festival too that are open to the
Mhm.
public and to our pass holders. So you know, there's those other opportunities to connect and hopefully mingle. And that's, you know, usually the joy of going to a big film festival like a South by Southwest is you just meet people that are in multiple disciplines that are doing things, filmmakers and tech people and educators, and
Mhm.
it's nice to just kind of like, you know, get them all in the same room. You really get like inspired, I think, being around those folks.
Yeah, so you say it's like a great way of like intersecting so many different kinds of groups and cultures into one thing where it's like you have like the people who love film coming in, wanting to see what people are making on the ground floor and stuff, like the big blockbuster stuff. You have people who maybe aren't that into film, but they want to see like what, like say their neighbor next door is going to be part of it. They want to see like, oh, I want to support the community, so that's why I want to go, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. Certainly, there are. We find the programs and the films that sell the most tickets are those that are locally connected. Or in the case of the Panic, there's a giant Buffalo crew that worked on that film, and a lot of curiosity. There was a lot of news coverage when that film was shooting, and so there is that. But also, we do have really great personal stories filmmakers that are traveling to Buffalo to join us. So I think we probably have around 150 filmmakers in attendance from the 200 films, including actors and
Mhm.
producers and others. And so it's a great opportunity to kind of connect in an informal environment. The price to come to BIFF, it's open to the public. It's about the cost of a traditional movie ticket, so it's $13 for most
Mhm.
films. Some of the shorts, like the Saturday morning cartoons, are $9. So those are a great opportunity. We really have something for everyone, from early sort of cinephiles. We also have some free programming too, but we have Saturday morning cartoons. And then we have things that are just really out there that are playing late at night. A movie I can't say on air that was a South by premiere. We have a movie called Queens of the Dead, which is drag queens versus zombies. I mean, from George Romero's daughter. It's fascinating and so much fun. So there's a lot of interesting things happening in various corners of the festival. We have not announced our off-screen art program, so we also will have some video art and some other installations that'll be happening around town, along with free
Mhm.
panels. So we did announce the one panel, which is coinciding with our opening night film, Baristas versus Billionaires. And so the director of that film, Mark Maury, who's an Academy Award nominee, along with the producer of that movie, which this is, one of the biggest stars we've ever had at BIFF, is Alec Baldwin. And they're going to have the
Mhm.
panel on October 10th at WNED Studios, and then they'll participate in their screening at 7:15 that night, which is our opening night movie at the North Park Theater.
So another question that I did have, this is something
Uh-huh.
a little more broad, I'd say, because it is more like touching on the film industry at large, I'd say. So
Sure.
so like would you say that, especially like with how there's so much more like indie films and stuff, a lot more like low level local type of films of people who are really trying to like get their foot in the door with entering the film industry. So do you think that like this would really impact the film industry at large, especially because like now in streaming, there's less of a, at least from what I've heard with recently, ever since streaming has taken such a foothold with movies, a lot of like
Mhm.
cult classic indie films, they haven't really had as much of like a, I guess you would say, footprint as they used to with like DVDs and stuff. So do you
Mhm.
think like this has helped exposing them in that era of streaming where DVDs used to have that role?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a couple really interesting things happening. I was at the Toronto International Film Festival 2 weeks ago, and I noticed, and I've been going to TIFF for like 15 years, and I've noticed that there was a lot of young people that were there, people in their 20s, and students that were there, and in sort of a way that I had not seen when I was around that age and going to those events. And I think it's really exciting. I think that era of streaming did expose people to and get people excited about global cinema. It wasn't just going down to the video
Mhm,
store and being beholden to what they have in their selection. But if you look at, places like Mubi and Netflix and Criterion Channel, I think it all has an impact on shaping a younger generation of people in their kind of mid to late 20s. And so like was a very hopeful sign to see that people were excited about seeing these films. So I do think that film festivals in that way bring that sense of community. It puts a halo around those films, particularly for like Western New York made films. I think having that Biff Laurel is actually can help the film travel beyond Western New York, and I think ultimately that should be the goal for any any Western New York director is to travel beyond and show your film elsewhere and hopefully get that distribution deal down the line. But it's so it is a stepping stone and a platform and a chance for people to have that communal experience and see films with the director as well. That's also a value add. Most of the films will have a Q&A or a talk back of some sort. So that's you get that sort of connection with the director and get to talk with them, and then and people will be around, so you'll maybe even get to see them again at one of the parties or at another screening, and so I find that for younger filmmakers, especially, like that 5 minute encounter where you maybe get that piece of advice could be transformative, and so we want to create those moments hopefully for those up and coming filmmakers in Buffalo.
So I guess this it could be a final question. I don't know. I don't know how much we want to keep this going because I am really enjoying this, to be honest.
Oh no, please, I got all
Yeah.
morning, yeah, or all day.
But another question that I had that was kind of a closer was, are there, and I don't even know if you could answer this because it might be showing your bias a little too much, but are there any films that are coming in like for the festival that you think are like just absolute must watches that if you only have time for a small handful, these are the ones that you just gotta watch like no matter what.
So there are a lot of really great events and films we have at BIFF. If anyone is interested in the full access or the all access pass is $80, and that gets you into
Mhm.
all the screenings. If you buy it online, you can reserve your screenings in advance, so you don't have to worry about being sold out. You also get drink tickets at the party, so one drink ticket at each of the 5 parties. So it's a really great deal. We also have for students and others in the community the option to volunteer, and so you can volunteer for 4 hours and receive that bison pass as well. So and that 4 hours isn't like hard labor. Usually it's like handing out badges or drink tickets or things. So there's that option for the community to participate. I wanted to mention that.
Mhm.
As for the actual films, I mean, there are some things that I'm really excited about. We have the world premiere of a movie called Turn Up the Night, which is filmed by Melody Rodick, who's a local director, and Buffalo plays LA in the 80s, and it's a fun hair metal movie. So that's at 9:45 on October 10th. We also have Baristas versus Billionaires, which is our opening night movie with Alec Baldwin is as one of the producers of the film is going to be there. And
Mhm.
then the movie. I mean, if you really want me to get to my bias, my first. Film professor was a woman named Julie Forrest Wyman, and her film The Tallest Dwarf, which I had seen at South by Southwest, is actually the film that kicks off the whole festival as our night zero film on Thursday night, October 9th, 7 o'clock at Hall Walls. And it's just a really
Wow.
wonderful personal documentary. And so, like, if I'm going to throw my bias, I'm going to throw it to Julie.
Mhm.
But we also have great shorts. We have got comedies, dramas, thrillers. We have we're giving our lifetime achievement award to Stephen McKinley Henderson, who's just a national treasure. He's been in amazing
Mhm.
films like Dune and Civil War, and has had a storied career. So we're showing on Sunday at 7 o'clock, October 12th, one of his films called Everyday People. That was a film that he chose, and we're going to have an extended conversation with him. And then we're showing a new film the day before on Saturday at Saturday October 11th, rather, at 4:45 at the North Park, called The Dutchman with Andre Gaines and Kate Mara, and that's a new film that premiered at South by Southwest earlier this year. Another film I really love is a film called Last Form in Reykjavik, which is about a punk rock museum in an abandoned toilet. Now, how does that have a Buffalo
Mhm.
connection? Brandon Moran, the director, is from Buffalo, along with his producer.
Mhm.
So there's a little something for everybody. And then, of course, we close with The Panic, and Cutman is sort of a back-to-back double feature. And the director of The Cutman is also a producer on The Panic, so he's going to be doing double duty at the Q&As that night, along with
Mhm.
yeah, so we have some of the actors coming from The Panic, as well as the writer director will be there.
That does sound like it's definitely like a varied selection of films. I feel like a lot of people would be interested in, especially the punk rock one, because if this ends up on WVNY, they do love them some punk rock. So I'm glad you mentioned that one.
Yeah, no, we've got a couple punk rock things this time around, along with a lot of other nuance, and we have art films and experimental work, and then we have things like a movie called F Toys. I'm not going to say the whole word, that is sort of a John Waters esque adventure, and so there's a lot of things. There's also a wonderful film about the Palestinian experience called All That's Left of You that I want to shout out. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
Jordan's pick for the Oscar this year for their country Oscar. So
Mm.
that's a really amazing film that's playing on Monday at 6:45 p.m. at the North Park. So literally something for everybody at the fest.
Mm-hmm.
200 films from 38 countries.
Yeah, real good selection. So I guess that's really all I had to ask basically. So I just wanted to say like thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and like to expose the festival to more people because I feel like especially with me because I'm not really from Buffalo. I'm up here for college. I'm from New York City.
Ah,
So finding out about stuff like this up here in Buffalo, it really is great because it shows that like no matter where you are, there's always people out there that are glad to like support film, music, whatever in their local community. So it really is great to like, hear about it and hear you talk about it and like so passionately. So just wanted to like thank you for taking the time to talk about it.
oh, no, thank you, Marcus. I appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to seeing you at the festival.
Hi, I'm Marcus Ramos. I'm a journalist with the record here at Buffalo State, and I'm here interviewing Brandon Moran. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, so I'm here interviewing Brandon Moran about, about his films and stuff as he's a part of the upcoming Buffalo International Film Festival. So how you doing?
Doing well. Excited for the festival.
Yeah. So I guess like the first thing I wanted to do with the interview was just like asking about you, like what's your background, like kind of like your resume in terms of film and stuff.
Sure. I'm going way back. I'm kind of late to film. I got into video production and whatnot in my early to mid 30s, and sort of just taught myself the craft. Um, and I started my own business, my own video production business back in 2014, and from there it was just, I did a couple. Aside from commercial work and all that kind of stuff, I did a couple 48-hour film festivals. Well, I guess I did 6 or 7 48-hour film festivals,
Yeah.
which got me interested in sort of, doing narrative and longer form film work. So back in 2000, I think it was 2019 when I first joined joined up with Rick Massey and Melody Rohrig and the others over who were doing Turn Up the Night, which is a film I DP'd and has its world premiere at the Buffalo International Film Festival. But it's interesting because that's really my first long form feature DP work, and it took so long for us to that whole film has its own story, but it's the first film that I DP'd, and because it took so long, I had made several films after we started that film, which and those projects all like finished before this film is premiered. So it's been quite a journey. But the majority of the work that I do is commercial work. I'm primarily a documentarian, so a lot of my commercial work is in that vein. But I have done a couple narrative films. Turn Up the Night is my first, like I said, my first feature that I've been a part of. And then the other film, I'm lucky enough, I have 2 films in this festival.
Yeah.
The second one is the documentary Last Farm in Reykjavik, which oddly enough started around the same time in 2019 when a friend of mine and also a co-creator on the film, Joshua Kozo, he and I took a trip to Iceland just for fun to go and take photos and get some video of, like, just the beautiful landscapes over in Iceland. We ended up meeting up with a friend of a friend, Scott Pierce, who is actually from Birmingham, Alabama. The three of us met up, got linked up by a mutual friend, and we asked him. We were like, "Hey, because we had been out in the countryside. He had spent 2 or 3 days in Reykjavik, and we had one night there. So we said, what should we do with our one day in Reykjavik?" And he said, "You need to go see the Icelandic Punk Museum. It's in an old decommissioned public toilet." So after a couple of drinks and dinner, we were like, "Yep, okay." So we ran down there, checked it out, and met the subject of our film, who was working there, an old punk by the name of Gunther Sigurdsson. And we decided, sort of right then and there, as an excuse to keep going back to Iceland, that we were going to make a feature-length documentary about him and the museum. And just happened, it just coincidentally, both of these films are screening at the Buffalo International Film Festival.
Yeah. So, based off what you said earlier, I kind of want to delve more into that because I thought it was interesting. You said that you got more into like film like later in your life compared to like most other people, you would say, right?
Yeah.
So what inspired you to do that, I guess, instead of like tackling it at a younger age or anything?
Yeah, so I originally, out of high school, when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a high school social studies teacher. So I went to school for history, and got my bachelor's in history, my master's in education, and then ended up, because the job market in New York State for history teachers is just extremely oversaturated. And so that, combined with the fact that 5 years of substitute teaching and short term whatever, I realized that I didn't really like to be stuck in a classroom with kids.
Yeah.
So I wandered for a few years, and then ended up getting a job at DUville College as an international student recruiter. And so I got to travel the world recruiting international students, and it was amazing. I got to go to Europe, to Asia, India, all over the place. And while I was doing this, I was like, you know what, I should really. I've always had an interest in photography, and I've always wanted to learn it. So I was like, well, I should buy myself a camera. So this was 15 years ago. I bought a DSLR that shot in HD, which is 1080. And I started making travel films, and then just got obsessed with creating content and that sort of thing. And then I bought a drone, and then I bought a bigger camera, and then I started making little videos on the side, and making a little bit of money doing that. And then one day I emailed John Paget, who was, if you know anything about film in Buffalo for the last 20 years, John Paget was like the man. He worked a lot with Visit Buffalo Niagara, and he helped really build the sales pitch for Buffalo over the last 20 to 30 years. And it turns out he lived like a street behind me, and we had coffee, and he started introducing me to other people in the industry. And so I started networking and working with other people, and then, just building up my expertise and a client base and a network. And yeah, so went full time with my video. I was doing it on the side all this time, but I finally went full time back in 2022. So yeah, I was traveling the world, and wanted to buy a camera, and started taking photos and making videos, and that just consumed my life. And I finally, it's funny because I can look back at the beginning, like when I thought I wanted to be a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I thought I wanted to be a teacher was because I loved my high school social studies teacher, Mr. Delia. He told the best stories, and I loved his class. And so I thought, well, that's what I want to do. But now, with 30 years of hindsight, I realized I didn't want to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to tell stories.
Yeah.
So
So
that's how that happens.
And do you think that like with the history background with college and stuff, do you think that shapes like the kind of stuff that you work on? Like you said, you work on a lot more like documentary type of stuff. So do you think that like
Yeah.
your college background there, it kind of shaped like, oh, if I'm going to be a part of a film or something, I want it to be like this, I want to document whatever's going on and like make history in my own way and make sure that like people in the future can look back on this like how I have.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I think I've always been interested in history. Like that's for sure. Like Indiana Jones. I went to the theater to watch. I was young, but I went to the theater to watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and that just like I ended up getting almost completing. I won't lie and say I got a second master's, but I'm all but thesis when it comes to my second master's in German history. So like I actually almost I was applying to PhD schools to do a PhD in modern German history. So like I love history, and all history is storytelling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most practical thing that I can say carried over from those studies is writing a history paper or writing any paper, right? Learning how to write, how to critically think, analyze, and then arrange a bunch of disparate thoughts into one cohesive paper that makes a point, that has a single point.
Mm-hmm.
That's filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
You take a collection of assets, whether it's clips, and I'm speaking specifically now about documentary. You take a bunch of information, a bunch of different story points, and you find a common theme, and you use those facts to tell a story. It's just like writing a term paper.
So I guess my next question would be, so after the film festival and stuff, like what's like your next project that you think you're gonna like jump right into, do you think?
Oh God! So I had a friend ask me this earlier today, and I said, "Well, for the next couple months, I'm not doing anything."
Yeah.
It's been a lot because the documentary just screened in Reykjavik on Monday at the Reykjavik International Film Festival, which was amazing. I wish I could have been there, but yeah. So in the near future, nothing.
Yeah.
Taking a break, but I have a couple other small documentaries that I've been working on that are going to be much smaller, maybe like 5 to 10 minute documentaries. Something much more digestible, something I can get done in a couple months. But after that, I do have another sort of piggyback documentary onto my Iceland. The idea came through the research and all of our trips to Iceland. So I made 8 trips to Iceland over the last 6 years to film the documentary. So that will be more focused on sort of the rise of Iceland as a destination, and taking more of a kind of a social media. Well, I don't want to say too much about it because
Yeah, can you keep a little under wraps?
yeah. So I guess what I would say is the next one. I do have another idea about that deals with Iceland. So I have a feeling that those first 8 trips won't be my last.
So I do have just a couple more questions, and they're more so relating to like being a part of the International Film Festival here in Buffalo.
Sure.
So the first one was no, just a simple question of asking like, how does it feel to just be a part of a festival like this?
I mean, um, okay, so I want to try and frame this in a way that to be a part of a festival, even though Buffalo's not the largest, festival in the country or in the world, being a part of a festival in your hometown means so much because you get to celebrate the work that you've done, no matter where you did it, whether you did it in Iceland, here in Buffalo, somewhere else in the country. You get to watch it and celebrate it the with your peers and your family and your friends, and that I think is just like the best part because like I said, my documentary screened in Reykjavik on Monday, and that was great. And the people that we filmed with and some of the cast and crew, they were able to attend and watch it, and that's cool. But like coming back and showing the people who have just heard about it,
Yeah.
to show them the work that you've put into it. That's what it's all about. And really the festival they put on here is just it's such an amazing event. Being part of this, it's so small, but such a highly talented group of people. In this community here in Buffalo. It's I don't know how to end that statement. It's just so gratifying, and I'm honored to be a part of such a talented community.
And I guess this is being less of interviewer and more just talking out of my ass and just giving my own two takes on it. Like you, it is like in a way, it is really interesting of how you put it because like I feel like you are one of the stories I feel like the festival always tries to create of like having a local person from Buffalo come in here and like show them like this work of art that they've made so the rest of the community, maybe like people that they've grown up with and all that, like their next door neighbor can come in and see like what they've done like as their passion and stuff.
Yeah, and I guess to that point, like I love the fact that like they do get some great films from all over the country, all over the world. But what I really enjoy the most is seeing what other people here, my friends and colleagues, what they're doing and what they're putting together. Because a lot of times you may know they're working on something or you may hear about it, but sometimes you don't. And so going to the festival and watching, seeing the work that they've done, it's great to be able to celebrate them, and it really sort of motivates you to be like, oh yeah, like if Luke's doing something, then like it pushes you to, it motivates you to go out and do something else. So so yeah, that's a great point.
And you saying that did actually lead into the last sort of question that I had for you, which was, do you hope that the films that are going to be displayed of yours at the festival, do you hope that in someone seeing those, it inspires them to go out and make their own films?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why we do this, right? Like I was like I said before, I was inspired by Indiana Jones, and on a grand level, right? And then meeting John Padgett and seeing what he's done inspired me to want to elevate what I do and help one, like spread the word about a cause, whether it's Buffalo or whatever the subject of their film is. But also, even though I don't want to be stuck in a classroom full of kids, I do like, how amazing would it be to have like somebody watch something you did and inspire them to go and do something else? Because you never know where that could take them. It's like, yeah, that's and you don't think about that while you're doing it, but it's one of those things that like when it happens, it just leaves you oh God, I'm
like a little bit awestruck, you would say?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it leaves you awestruck. So.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that was all the questions I had. So just want to say like thank you for allowing me to talk with you about your film and like your experience and all that. And I'll definitely be looking forward. I definitely want to make sure that I catch your films at the festival. So
yeah, please do. Please come out and tell your friends.
yeah,
Love to have as many people as we can come to these things.
yep. So once again, thank you so much for agreeing to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, of course, and good luck with your other interviews. Where can we? Is this going to be like? I know you said it might be on the radio.
It could be on our podcast, which is Just for the Record, which is available on YouTube and Spotify. And as for for the record, as for the radio, it's available on WBNY, which is on 91.3 FM. Hi, my name is Marcus Ramos. I'm here with The Record, interviewing, it's Rick, is it Macy or Massey?
Massey.
Interviewing Rick Massey, who's a director that's part of the Buffalo International Film Festival.
Actually, you know what? I'm for Turn Up the Night. I'm the writer and I'm writer, songwriter, and executive producer.
Mm-hmm.
But Melody is the director. Melody Roerick.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so used to having that as the line, so it kind of just like built into the brain.
Yeah, no worries at all. I just but yeah.
All right, so I guess we can just jump right into the questions. I guess I'm gonna keep that in because why not? So I guess I could start with like just asking if you can like maybe give just like a rundown, like a resume kind of thing of like the experience that you have and like with filmmaking and all that type of stuff.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So let's see, I've been a filmmaker now for I'll say about 12-ish years.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2013 is kind of when I realized I had that kind of epiphany moment where I can make movies.
Yeah.
Because I always thought that I had this misconception that you had to like live in Hollywood in order to make movies. And like I'm somebody like I grew up huge fan of just pop culture in general, but like of music, of movies. Like my favorite movies of all time, like Ghostbusters is probably my favorite movie of all time, followed by Jaws. Depending on the day, I might switch those two.
Oh, I know the feeling.
Yeah. So I grew up as a fan of movies to begin with, but it always seemed like it was outside of the realm of things that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I, we got married in 2012, and we're from Buffalo. Both of our families are from Buffalo, but because of job reasons, we had to move out of state. And I kind of went through this little period of like, everybody goes through that existential moment of like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I doing with myself?
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Kevin Smith, the director Kevin Smith, but Kevin Smith as a speaker, because he has these, at the time he had this podcast called Smodcast, and at that particular time, let's put this around 2013. I hadn't started my filmmaking journey yet, but I was kind of searching for my purpose, more or less. And I came across this podcast with him and his buddy, and they were listening to a cassette tape of him from, I think it was like 1989 or 1990, and it got me to laugh. And I hadn't been at that point. I hadn't laughed about anything in a while. I hadn't had anything to look forward to. Well, listening to him talk and just listen, I went down the rabbit hole of Kevin Smith and listening to him talk, and I finally had the epiphany that maybe I can do this. Like maybe I can be a filmmaker as well. So jumping ahead a few years, I had a couple of my own films under my belt, things that I wrote, things that I directed, filmed myself. And I kind of built up my resume between, I had done 2 feature films, and then I had done a number of shorts. So I used to have a web series called Tales of Dark and Light. And it was kind of like, if you're familiar with The Twilight Zone or Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps, like a lot of those kind of short horror themed like they're little episodic things.
Yeah.
I had built up a resume. Now, before all this, going back to maybe around 2007, like let's say mid 2000s, I was in a band, and music was kind of my first love. I grew up on 80s hair metal and big fan of Prince and Michael Jackson, like that era of music. And I had been in a band around that time. And the band that I was with, we were fortunate enough to be approached by a record label. And I left during that process, and it was nothing to do with the guys in the band. It was the situation that we were in. And it was your typical, in my opinion, like the mustache twirling record executives who weren't so much in it to try to help the band as they were in it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I left during this process, and it was very difficult, and but it gave inspiration for what would later become Turn Up the Night. I was able to kind of marry my personal love of that genre of music, that 80s hard rock and heavy metal, with my real life experience of, the record industry and the things that go into it, and how you there's a little struggle with identity in the record industry. So that brings us to where we are now, where we're going to be having the world premiere of Turn Up the Night at Biff.
So it is interesting that you went in with like the inspiration for the film, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. But another thing about like with what you mentioned earlier, it's less like a question. Like I just find it so interesting how you had the mindset of like you need to be in Hollywood to like be a filmmaker and all that. Because like it's such like a generational divide, I guess. Because like I've never been interested. Like I love watching films, but I've never been interested in like becoming a filmmaker. But I have a bunch of friends who want to be filmmakers and stuff, and we've grown up because like we're all the same age and everything. We've grown up with like YouTube and stuff, where we saw like growing up a bunch of people just grabbing a random camera, going into the garage and like making little skits and shorts and stuff. And so like we've been exposed to the notion of like, oh, we can do this. We just gotta get the motivation to do it. We have everything we need right here. And so like with one of my friends, they are I'm forgetting the name of the film that they're doing, but it's like they've been working on this film like for months and months at this point. Like they've written out the script. They've done filming in like different locations around where they live, because they currently live in Connecticut. So I haven't been able to see anything yet. So, but still, like they've really just like gone out there and do it without anything like blocking them like mindset wise, because like we just realized that like we don't need the fancy equipment or the locations or anything to like really just jump into being a filmmaker. All we need is the motivation and the confidence in our ideas, you know?
And that's exactly it. There's a couple things that you said there that are absolutely true. Like, but in like my personal journey with this is like at that time I was like, well, where do I start? And for me there was a film there was a channel on YouTube called Film Riot. Mm-hmm. And, they still exist today and they're still making videos, but their thing was like, let's cover the basics. Like, let's cover all the things that you don't even think about. Like, and like for me personally, I've always thought of myself as like maybe a writer first, and then actor and director, like those things come second. Mm-hmm. But when it came to like building these projects, I was like, oh man, like I didn't think about like, light, how important lighting is in a particular situation, like how important staging is for, where you're, if you're doing a sit down conversation between two people, like where does the camera need to be, and make sure that you have something that's kind of interesting, in the background, and your shots are interesting. Your shots don't look like two people are on the same side of the room. It actually looks like they're having a conversation. Mm-hmm. It's like those things that I didn't think about at the time, that I was so fortunate that videos like that existed on YouTube, because it was an amazing resource to be able to kind of learn firsthand. Because that was the thing to me, is like, okay, I need to be able to learn how to do this. Like I need to be able to know the fundamentals. and how to do this. And then the second thing that you said too that is so true is, because when this question comes up for me, it's the one thing that I always mention is you have to, if you are a filmmaker, right? You're somebody, it's your first go about this and you want to go do it. You have to be the catalyst to get it going. You have to have confidence in yourself, and you have to put in the work in order to kind of get it off the ground. Because, the days of having that amazing script and then trying to sell that script, that's extremely difficult. And my recommendation to anybody is get the work, build your resume, get out there, go do it, go do your story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's because I'm 38. And when I was younger, obviously YouTube came around mid 2000s or so, and it's evolved so much over time. It's great now because right before we got on the call, I was fixing my washing machine with a video that I pulled up on YouTube. Help me along with it. So yeah, it's an amazing resource because back in the day, magazines and books or special features on DVDs, those are the things that I think of, and that's probably how most people learn this stuff, unless you went to film school. So, but yeah.
Yeah, as a kid, I would watch the most. I'm pretty sure the YouTubers that did skits that I watched the most was Smosh and stuff, and I haven't seen them in years since I was a little kid, so I don't remember the exact minute details of their motivations and stuff. But I'll always remember also watching behind the scenes stuff of how they said that they were. I'm pretty sure this is me vaguely remembering of how they were just so impassioned to be creators and stuff, and they saw YouTube as the way to do it back in 2005 when it first started. And so they thought, so how can we do this? We have the motivation and we have the confidence, and so they just ran with that. They just got a random camcorder and they went from just two friends filming a mini little skit about Pokemon in their room and stuff. So nowadays they're a multi-million-dollar company with a bunch of staff who also record skits and stuff, and they literally had feature-length movies that played in theaters, and they're part of other movies and stuff. So it's just it's really interesting to see how YouTube in itself has changed the game in a sense, and especially today, the difference between 2005 YouTube, whereas people just out here doing it. Now with 2025 YouTube, it's people motivating other people to do it. And I always complain that every day I'll probably say the internet was a mistake with how much just ooh. But then at the same time, you also have to appreciate that the internet has allowed either professionals or just people who are just so impassioned about it to just hop on in front of a camera and tell other people okay, so if you want to get into filmmaking, here's what you can do. Here's even down to the equipment that you could get that's pretty cheap, just if you want to be cheap about it, here's a good microphone you can get, here's a good camera, go ham,
all those DIY videos too of you don't have $300 to get this piece of equipment. Let me show you how for $20 you can get something that will function the same way. But there was this guy that his name was Brandon Hardesty was his name, and he was a kid. I think he's similar to my age. So let's just say going back to the early days of YouTube, let's just say he's between 15 and 20 years old. He would make videos of him reenacting famous scenes from movies. So there was one from The Breakfast Club or Pulp Fiction or whatever, and it's him, and it's him just acting, doing all the different parts in the scenes, and he was good. And I came across him on YouTube, and I was following him for a couple months, and then he ended up on Jimmy Kimmel. I think it was because somebody found him on YouTube and thought that he was pretty good. He got on to Kimmel, and then he ended up having a I don't know if he's what he's still doing, but for a short period of time, like he was getting parts and things, and I thought to myself, I'm like, man, I could do that. So in the deepest depths of YouTube, there are videos of me kind of doing the same thing, like reenactments of. Oh my god, I'm trying to remember some of the movies. Like Rocky Balboa. There's a scene that he has this famous speech, and then there's.
Oh, I love that speech.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie Glenn Ross.
I don't think I have, no.
Okay, so it was like I'm pretty sure it was a stage production, and it's got Al Pacino, Alec Baldwin, a whole bunch of like at the time the movie came out in the early '90s, but famous actors. But Alec Baldwin comes out. And he's got this speech, this always be closing speech. And I don't know if you, like you said, you might not have seen the movie, but you've probably heard in some iteration of other movies this always be closing speech. So there's 6 guys in the scene, and like I made a video of me doing that speech, but I'm playing 6 different characters. So it's like I look back on it, and it's like it's funny, and I was like, man, I can do this. Like, but you know what that is though? It's all that stuff's practice. Like,
Yeah,
that is practicing for future stuff.
yeah, like how like some I've heard sometimes how like some people encourage people like when they're learning how to play an instrument or anything, instead of just like jump right into like making your own, just like do covers first, like of like songs that you already know, so you get like the fundamentals down and stuff.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, just looking through my questions.
Yeah, no worries. I can talk for a while. So.
Yeah, and I am really enjoying this. This is really good.
Yeah.
Like I'm going a little off the air quote script with like the questions that I have, mainly because like with the YouTube and stuff, because I felt like that was like a real interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah, because that's how the things that I always kind of get the most out of, like especially hearing like other filmmakers talk, because I go to a lot of different film festivals, and I know a lot of people, especially within the Buffalo area. And it's always cool to kind of like, you learn from everybody, like everybody that you like encounter, like you learn different things and you pick up on different things. And especially when it comes to listening to or reading other like interviews, I'm always curious like what people are, they say the process for, right?
Yeah.
And I'm doing like the finger quotes as far as like process, but it is interesting to hear about like, oh, okay, well, I never thought about that. Like that's a good thing to look into, or a good avenue to look into, with my next project. So
I guess now that you did mention your next project, that could lead into one of the questions I did have, which was like, how does like each project you do like build you up in a sense of like would you say you grab something from like say you work on project A and you grab something from that experience that shapes how you do project B, and then the same for C, then D, and all that type of stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the first movie I did in 2015 was called On the Level. It was kind of like a little crime drama type of thing. And that was more of a serious kind of like, I really wanted like a David Fincher type of vibe. It was my first film, super low budget, like practically no budget film. And it was for what it was really good. In the sense of like, all right, like, hey, we went out there, we made a movie, and like, yeah, it's low budget, but everybody who acted in it was great. Everybody had a good time making it. But during that process, like, just as an example, like me kind of learning on the fly how to do this, I had one of the cards. There's if you're using like at the time it was a DSLR, and like there's a memory card, and then you put the memory card into a reader, and the reader the files on your computer, right? So I have a corrupted reader, and I lost a whole day's worth of footage. And just kind of looking at it and in absolute panic.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
Figure out what to do, and I ended up being able to salvage most of it, but a lot of it got ruined. But like, there's other things though too. Is like we wrote a joke that was into my next movie it was called Free Fallers. That came out around 2017. But that whole premise for that movie was it's a film about making a film, and really what it was is just all the funny stuff and kind of learning. Like, the stuff that we learned while making the first one, that was funny, but also kind of like stressful. we put a lot of that stuff into this next movie. Because like, just as an example, like there's a scene where a guy is filming somebody and he realizes halfway through that the batteries on the camera are going.
Yeah.
And he just tells him, just keep going. Just let him keep going. So, yeah, we wrote a lot of those little jokes and stuff. But something like Turn Up the Night, that was probably one of the first times where I was like, you know what? I feel like I really got something to say with this one. Like, there's at the time, though, too, is like, you know, there's a story here that I feel like I need to get out there. Because when I was going through this whole thing with the band, and this was probably like 2007, it was one of those moments, and I feel like all of us at some point have these kinds of, you can look back on it and be like, you know what, that was like a growing up moment for me. Like I can definitively look back and be like, you know what, I grew up in that specific situation. And that's kind of how I felt about me with the band and leaving the band at the time that they were going to sign this record contract, and you know, that whole process there. So Turn Up the Night, like I was saying, was the first time I was like, you know, I got to get this story out there, because it's not just a story about like the band. And yes, in the movie that's what it's about, but it's really about a story about finding your identity and, you know, what that means to you.
Yeah.
And, you know, not letting somebody try to take that away from you.
Like keeping like your vision intact, kind of thing.
Yeah. Keeping your vision intact. Going out there, making sure that, because the one thing, especially, and I'll bring this back to like the music industry. At what point is it still you, and at what point is it you as the product? You know, because there's a scene in Turn Up the Night where the manager of the band is talking to one of the guys, and his argument to him is like, you know, this is a business. Like, if we're trending low in South Dakota, we're gonna take a picture of you on a Harley, and that's gonna be your new brand because that's what's gonna make us successful in the business part of it. And then at the same time, it's like, at what point do you become a product? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which is like, I know I keep tying it back into YouTube when this is supposed to be like an interview about you, but I just find it so interesting when you mention that, just like growing up with YouTube, since like I was born in 2005, which was the same year that YouTube was created. So basically my whole life I've only known YouTube, even though I'm only a month older, but still. So like my whole life, like growing up as a little kid, I would ask for my dad's phone so I could watch YouTube. And so I grow up with these creators and their channels. And so I see firsthand that shift where it's like a creator gradually becomes more of a brand than like just an actual person, or like they become a little more sanitized, I guess. Like they rely more on like big name sponsors instead of like other avenues of like supporting themselves. Because like at least with today, there are like so many ways to support yourself online if you're like a notable creator on YouTube, that like sometimes when you see a creator take a sponsor where you know it doesn't really align with how they've used to be, like personality wise, or how they presented their channels, like what are we doing here, you know?
Yeah.
So like it's just interesting that you mention it in like the music industry, because I feel like, however, everyone says history is cyclical. So I guess it is true how like the cycle is just repeating again, where instead of in the music industry with big labels, it's YouTube with one guy talking to sponsors that are like let's say less than moral, I guess.
Yeah. The music industry. So, I mean, especially the time that we're covering, though, too. I mean, like you said, it's cyclical. But like that period in particular, too, it was so. Like I said, I grew up listening to these 80s hair bands and heavy metal bands and stuff. And like, you know, they always say that Nirvana is what killed that genre of music. Like when grunge came out almost overnight,
Mm-hmm.
those bands that were hugely popular for almost a decade, they almost kind of went away. It became uncool to listen to those. But even right before that, it got to a point where that particular genre of music, it almost became cookie cutter. There were so many bands coming out trying to do the exact same thing. And it just got more and more cookie cutter and kind of a little bit ridiculous. And people started losing like that identity. And it's largely because of the record companies who were coming in and being like, no, you got to be like this. You got to sound like this. You know, kind of stripping that individuality away from a lot of these groups.
Yeah. So I spoke with John Fink like last week at this point. Even though I'm going to upload this on YouTube, it's going to be all in one, so it's going to be like half an hour ago if this ends up in. So, so I spoke with him a while ago, and I spoke with him about like indie films and their impact on like current culture. And I feel like this is a good question to ask you as well, with like how we were talking earlier with like people getting like inspired by YouTube, and how like a bunch of people start their indie film journeys on YouTube. So like, do you think that like indie films are still like as prevalent as they were in the past, where like they would get their cult following based off like DVDs and stuff, but like nowadays streaming has just completely taken out like DVDs from the equation, unless like you're so passionate about the film that you want to physically own it and stuff. And so with that, it's like a bunch of people don't get exposed to like a really good indie film that didn't get like a huge like box office like run, but on DVD that's where you're able to really dig into it and say like, oh, this is amazing, it's like one of the best films I've ever seen. So
that's such an interesting question, because I have kind of two things, like thinking about it in real time. I'm like, you know, my because I grew up, you know, probably my most formative years, let's just say, were the 90s, right? And like late 90s, early 2000s. And like you said, like DVDs, like, you know, how it used to be is like somebody would be like, you know, I just watched the movie Donnie Darko the other day. I don't know if you've ever seen that. But I was talking to my wife. I was like, man, I remember when this came out. And it was one of those movies that was like underground enough at the time. Now it's become a good cult classic type of film. But it was underground enough at the time where somebody's brother was just like, hey, have you ever seen Donnie Darko? And I'm like, no. But like, it is one of the craziest movies. And it was kind of like an indie movie. It had some names in it, but it was such a small movie that at that time it would be like, you know, somebody would recommend it to you, and I do kind of miss that a little bit. But at the same time, I'm thinking about things now, and I'm like, you know, it's easier in the sense that people, because we have so many advancements in technology, like cameras, like, you know, everybody's got a camera on their phone or a video recorder on their phone, right? You can go out and you can make movies a lot easier now. But even some of those more, I would say, like traditional indie type of movies, we keep bringing it back to YouTube, right?
yeah.
You can find something, or maybe somebody reviews something, and you know, something that maybe I would have never come across otherwise. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure about this, is a couple years ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, there was a movie called Talk to Me that came out. It was a horror movie about, it was like a hand, and there was some type of supernatural element. But those guys that made that movie, they got their start on YouTube. They were able to kind of build it up that way. So they were able to kind of slowly and gradually build their indie following. It's still an indie movie, and but so, man, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent. But I mean, if I could try to bring it back to like what your original question was, I think that feeling is still there. It's just, I think that now there's more it's a little oversaturated, but because people get more exposure. But I still think that you're able to find good indie stuff in the same way that you used to be able to back in the day. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Because the whole mindset with that question was like I was thinking of like the film festival as a whole and how like there's just so many films here of people that just like are maybe getting their start here or like still like very much ingrained in the indie space and just like this is still their way of getting exposure. And it just made me think of how because like because like even though I was born in 2005, I still had like a bunch of DVDs as a little kid. Like sometimes me and my dad, he would take me to the local store that just sold a bunch of DVDs and video games, and like he would look for a movie, and I'd just like go look at like the DVDs for like Transformers and Dragon Ball Z and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, now I think I get a better understanding of where you're headed with it, but like. Let me like the thing with film festivals that I tell people all the time, like the filmmakers, like if you're a filmmaker, go to these festivals. One, there's nothing like the experience of seeing a movie within a theater or seeing a movie with people.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, there's that. But then there's movies that I've seen at film festivals that have gone on to have life outside of that festival. And like, some movies that end up on Shudder, or maybe they get picked up by like a distributor or something like that. And then you can be like, I saw that, and I got the opportunity to meet and talk to the filmmakers. And that's where I was going to go with the next point is like, it is such an awesome networking opportunity to go to film festivals. Cause one, you're supporting the community. And and the important thing that I try to, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be a filmmaker, but it's your duty in a sense to support other filmmakers, to go out there and see what's out there. Because we quite literally are all in this together, and
you gotta like foster that community, to like keep it alive and keep encouraging people to keep having it grow.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly it. And John and his team have been so wonderful through this process of getting this all together, because I can see the care and the love that goes into like this festival. And even too. I was going to say, like, there's another festival locally called Amazing Fantasy Fest that I've been a part of, not this year, but it was just running pretty recently. And the same thing goes for that festival as well, is like, you can see the love that goes into the making of these, and also the filmmakers that are there. It's a community. It's of uplifting and encouraging. And I guess that's my overall point is like, if you're a filmmaker, you got to be out there. It's your duty. It's your privilege to support other filmmakers. And if you're looking to get into it too, the piece of advice I always give is that if you're passionate, if you're earnest, and if you're willing to do the work, like people will be inspired to follow you on your journey, and maybe they'll help you with your next project. And so there's a real we were talking about indie in general, like that is the vibe that I get for all of these things.
And like, would you also say that like it's just like the fact that like seeing like a person seeing their film, even if it's not in like every theater in the world, just the fact that they see it like on the big screen somewhere, it still inspires them like, this is real, I'm actually doing it.
Man, there is nothing like being in a theater. And, thankfully in my case, I've had positive reactions to the film, but there's nothing like being in the theater and seeing your film on the screen. And then especially to the first time that somebody laughs at a joke or something like that, there's no feeling like it. It's like, okay, like this is, or the applause at the end, or so people have questions or sometimes too. But yeah, there's nothing quite like being there in the moment. And most of the time it's a blur.
Yeah.
because it's like a wedding in a sense. You're preparing so much for the event and all the lead up to it, and then the actual event comes and it's like, wow, that went by fast.
Because I'm just imagining it from like a personal standpoint. Because like as a journalist, like I started like being a journalist at like a summer internship last year at a local newspaper that still did print. And it was when I did it, like my very first article, and it got printed in an actual newspaper. It was like when I saw that, where in my head it just made me think like, this is what I want to do. Like it's real, you know? Like I still have that newspaper. I vividly remember taking it from the office because they just let us take it for free. I remember taking it from the office to all the way back home and just showing it to my mom, you know?
Yeah, it's there's nothing quite like that feeling of feeling like I made it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like or like not even so much I made it, but like this is the door. The door is open now, and now I can keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So let's see any of the other questions I got, because like this is like compared to all the interviews I've done so far, this is the most just off script, just off the top of the head, keeping the conversation going kind of interview. So so I'm a little thrown off with the questions in this.
No, exactly. Like, I'll tell you what. I got I met Kevin Smith in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and if you know anything about him, like he'll go do shows where he'll ask for audience questions, and it's really like his shows are more or less just based off of whatever the audience asks him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the third person to ask him a question, and he'll give long, thorough, thought-out answers.
Yeah.
I was the third person to ask him a question. We were already an hour and a half into the show. So I was like, so I think about it in that sense too, and like, because a lot of it like it's conversational, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think that's when you get the most out of situations like this. Like,
Yeah.
So keeping it organic and yeah,
And it's so funny that you mentioned Kevin Smith, because like you view him as the filmmaker, where in my experience I view him as the comic book writer because I'm really into comic books. So like just hearing how you view him like from the filmmaker's perspective and how he's inspired you, it's just so interesting of how I view him from the comic book perspective, and how like he's written for one of my all-time favorite comic book characters, Daredevil, and like the impact that he had on Daredevil is still felt today, you know. So it's just interesting hearing that wide range of how you interpret someone's influence on you personally.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you a something that I took from that time where I got a chance to meet him. So he was performing at Helium Comedy Club in Buffalo,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, I was the third person to ask a question, and I started with because this was right around the time that I was releasing my first film.
Mm-hmm.
And I started as most people normally would, like, hey, I just want to say thank you. Like, you were a big influence on this. I got a movie that we just did. It's going to be coming out. And he stopped me in my tracks. And he goes, wait, hold on. Before you get to your question, he goes, tell everybody in this room right now about your movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh. I'm like, okay. So it was like 200 people in this thing who were all there to see him,
Mm-hmm.
by the way. But he gave me the platform for like, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes or so
Yeah.
to just talk about what it was. And I was like, holy shit. Like, he had no obligation to do that.
Mm-hmm.
To give me the platform to talk to his audience about my thing. And I still think about that because it's 10 years since that moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that is one of those pay it forward type of things that I think about all the time. So when I was saying like, it's your privilege to make sure that you encourage other filmmakers. Like I think about that all the time. I'm like, man, that was so cool. And being able to kind of like still to this day, because he was in Buffalo pretty recently, but I didn't go to the show. But like, like anybody, I reached out to him on X, and I was just like, hey man, like 10 years ago, I saw you at this thing. Who knows if he ever saw the thing, the tweet or whatever, but I was like, I just want to let you know I'm still doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a large part thanks to you and your advice. So
And that
So,
it does build off like what we said earlier of how like you gotta foster the community and like keep inspiring other people to keep doing the filmmaking, and then as they build themselves up, then again with the cyclical the nature of it, then they do it and just like exponentially the community just grows and grows because more people encourage more people and then those people encourage other people, you know?
exactly. And like in one of the things that he that's so true, and it's not just filmmaking; it's like any aspect of life. There's so many people who, and I'll go back to me as an example. Like part of me not jumping into filmmaking was one because I didn't know that I could do it,
Mm-hmm.
and then two, there's always people who are going to kind of crap on your ideas, right? There's a lot of people who are very cynical. You don't have to look too far for somebody to be like, well, like, why are you going to do that? Like, why do you want to do that? Somebody who's got something to say about anything that you like or there's things that you want to do. And as far as the community goes, it's like you go out and you find people that have the same type of interest that you do that are encouraging. And like I said, you work with those people and, you foster that community. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's just like it's so interesting of how you're able to like view so many people like just like living out your dream, and instead of like say like how maybe billionaires are just like I don't know if you could reach this point, instead they're just like you can reach this point, you just gotta work to do it like how we all work to do it.
Yeah. Yep. And I, you mentioned being a big comic book fan. Like I grew up on Batman,
Mm-hmm.
and Batman comics. I used to go in the original run of the Long Halloween. It was like,
Oh, I love the Long Halloween. It's my favorite Batman story.
yeah. So during that original run, there was a comic book store that I didn't live too far away from that I would go to every month and get the latest issue. There's only two that I didn't get, and it was because they were like the rare ones and stuff. But like, Batman comics, movies, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about a couple lines, especially from like the Nolan films. And like there's one line where he's like, the city isn't beyond saving. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's his mindset, right?
Yeah.
He still sees the good in people. And I try to, like, day-to-day life, I try to have that approach, especially nowadays, because everything is there's so much negative that's out there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you gotta keep the faith that people are that there are good people out there.
I mean, I feel the same way about like Superman because you asked me pre-pandemic who my favorite comic book character was. I probably would have said Daredevil. But after the pandemic, it's when I started, obviously I had a lot more free time, so I started reading characters that I wasn't as knowledgeable about. And there was Superman where as a kid, you always just parrot what you hear other people say. So I heard people say, "Oh, Superman's boring. He has all these powers. He's unrelatable." But then, during the pandemic, I'm just like, "How about I actually form my own opinion on him?" And so I read just a bunch of Superman stories, and now it's just my absolute favorite character in comic books. Of just like what he represents of just like being just inspiring you to be better, to look at the bright side and all of that. Like you said with Batman and saying that like the city can still be saved. It's not completely lost. So like seeing Superman just be just a regular guy at his core, just thinking like, I know people can be better, so I'm gonna go out there, inspire them to be better. So it's stuff like that that like really like impacts me and makes me think like, yeah, I'll do the same thing. Why not?
Yeah. Why exactly? Why not? Like I can be that too. I can be that kind of that beacon of positivity.
And it's also why I love the Superman movie that came out recently because I feel like it did hit that aspect of his character really well. I'd say
That last little monologue that he has towards the end,
mm-hmm.
and I've always like growing up being Batman or being a Batman fan. Growing up being Batman. Growing up being a Batman fan, like I've always kind of because especially like in my age group, it was like, oh, are you a Batman fan or you a Superman fan? Well, I'm a fan of both, but like, yes, I'm more of a Batman fan because you always kind of look at Superman as being kind of a little dorky or goody two shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
But when it got to that point of the most recent movie, the James Gunn one, and he's got that monologue at the end, I was like, you know what, this is dorky, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all, because I'm like, that's Superman. Like but his positivity and his message, like, absolutely right, absolutely positive, and it was perfect. I thought it hit a perfect tone at the end of that movie, and that's why, like, when I'm jokingly saying it was dorky, but that's only because of, like, when I think of Superman, just based off of, like, growing up, that's what I think of, but I'm like, it was so on brand, and I loved that part so much, and it was so, maybe I'm not doing it justice, but just basically, that was the type of thing that messaging was the type of thing that I feel like now people need to hear. You know what I mean? And I thought they did so well with that, and so well with the character.
Like, I did feel like the exact same way with, like, again, another ending monologue, but in the Batman from 2022, where, like, at the end, he had a very similar, like, inner monologue of how he needs to, like, be the hope for Gotham and, like, not be based in vengeance like he was before, you know? Like, it's stuff like that that makes me think, like, man, I love superheroes, like, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Got anything else to talk about? Because I think it's a pretty good place to end it, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we've been talking for a while.
Yeah, I think this is the longest interview. Yeah.
Did we actually talk about the movie?
I mean, we just went from the movie to YouTube to comic books, you know.
Yeah. Well, no, let me say this, because so my involvement with Turn Up the Night is, like, I wrote all the songs from it, and I'm producer on it, but, like, I was a part of a group of three that really brought this movie to where it is, because I don't know if you know anything about the history, and I'll probably just I'll tell you this is when we first announced this project, it was in 2000, I think we announced it in 2018 and began shooting in 2019. And at the time, we had a very kind of traumatic experience happen involving one of the actors at the time that was involved with the project. And I won't go into detail because there is we do have a documentary called Dreams into Nightmares. It's a 3-part. It is on YouTube about that issue that we had, and we had to stop production the first time, and then we were like, okay, like, well, we all kind of went through this traumatic thing. Somebody tried harming themselves on set is what it was. We had to stop production, but everybody felt it was important enough to come back to it. So we're like, all right, let's do this again. Let's do this Turn Up the Night 2.0. And this was early 2020, and as we all know,
oh yeah,
we had to throw all of those plans away because we weren't going to be able to do anything in 2020. And then we finally got back to it in 2021. So from 2021 to 2023 is when we filmed this, and then, edited 2024, and been trying to, get it to play at festivals and everything since then. But we would not have been able to do that without the involvement of, like, and I'm not exaggerating, within the Buffalo area, there are 400 or so names that are attached to this movie that helped out in some capacity, whether they were somebody who let us use their restaurant or their space, or they volunteered their time for a day, or maybe they did craft, or they were an extra, or, whatever it is. But when we get to the real kind of nitty gritty of it, and this is the thing that if I want to make sure that if you can, please include this in there, is that without Melody as the director and without Brandon as director of photography, I don't think that we'd be where we are today. Their work and dedication and belief in it, to put their own time in it, you know, it's gotten us to a point to where we are. When they sent me, because I don't know if I mentioned this. After we did it the first time, I was emotionally and financially just kind of broken from the whole first experience, that whatever we went through. And I have young kids, and I needed to spend more time with them. So though I was on set most days, there were days that I weren't there, and but it was so nice being able to trust both Melody and Brandon to be able to bring the story together and pull it together. Like, and as me being producer, I kind of helped put the shoots together. I got all the bodies in place and all that stuff. But yeah, we wouldn't be where we are today without their time and involvement. And like I said, almost 400 people. And, because one of the things that I say too all the time is, time in general is our most valuable but least available commodity. So just want to make sure that I mention that, make sure that I'm giving them their due credit for getting us to where we are.
And it will definitely stay in, don't you worry.
Okay,
yeah, definitely,
yeah. I mean, this has been great. It's been great. I know it's an interview, but I appreciate the fact that we were just kind of having conversations for a while.
Yeah, it was nice to just talk, less stressful about like following the questions. I just like went off the top of my head of like, let me talk about Smosh on YouTube and stuff like that,
All right, well, I unfortunately have to get going, but this has been great, man. I greatly appreciate you taking the time, and if you happen to be there,
I'll make sure to see you when I'm there. That's for sure. Yeah,
come say hi. You won't miss me. I'm gonna have a purple blazer on, so come up, say hi, and let me know when everything's out. I'll be happy to, like I said, support it.
Definitely, and thank you again for agreeing to do all of this.
Yeah, definitely.